And so, in this first part of the book, Thinking Sociologically, Zygmunt Baumann and Tim May is taking up an issue about how we are in a group and how we find ourselves when we meet the norms and the values of the group, and the connection and relation between what we want, the I inside us, the self, that which makes us to who we are, is a combination of a relation to ourself and all what's in it and what we need, and the relation and adjustment and action in relation to the group and to the surroundings that is around us and making an impact on us. And how is that working? And this is what this chapter is about, and how we define ourselves in relation to where we are and what groups we are part of. It's a very common sense experience, they say here, that we many times can feel ourselves under conditions that we feel we do not are free to do anything about. We do not have control over them, and we are not the ones who can act in them in a way so we can regulate them. It also happens that we sometimes want to defend the way we use our way of being or freedom from outside control, and do not want to adjust to the expectations that we meet around us, and we resist. And so we are in that movement between adjusting and being rebels, getting the control from the outside, internalizing it and leaving it and going different directions. And so we feel at the same time both free and unfree, and many times this is also part of what sociology is looking into, that the way we make our decisions is many times based on more than just our freedom, like arbitrary freedom, that okay, I don't like being here, I'm gonna go. That's a basic choice you always have, but in reality we do not do that, because we are always bound by the resources we have and the situation around us. How are we judged? What access are we given? Are we able to leave? Is it allowed? And are we able to live and maintain our life at the same time in a new way, in a new direction? So we are always between the possibility of doing what we want and the restraints of what makes it difficult to get what we want. They also look into that when we make decisions, are they always our decisions, or sometimes just internalized decisions of the community and the society around us? So that internalization of decisions is sometimes not something we are aware of. It becomes what we call the routine actions, the culture. It's just something we do. So when we are driving in a car in a certain way, and maybe I'm in a part of the world where I have to drive slowly and easy and blink and follow the rules, otherwise, well, I will be breaking the law. And in other parts of the world, if you drive like this, you would be seen as an annoyance to the traffic. You have to break the law, run the red light, get out of the road as fast as you can. You don't need to blink, just show that you are tending to go right or left. And everyone who has traveled have seen these differences, and it's the same. You're driving your car towards a destination, but the culture surrounding you and the rules and the routines are different. And that's what makes us aware. That's why people like traveling and going to new cultures, to become aware of their own culture and its good and bad side. What is it lacking? What is it better in? And oh my God, these people are totally different in their behavior and routines and way they do things. And so those routines and the limitation of our actions are what defines our sociological relation in society. So we are defined by material factors, and we are defined by what you can call symbolic factors. The material factors is, well, do you have a car, first of all, to drive? And if you want to leave your work, can you find some other work, or do you have enough money to go about with? Can you shift from one place to another? Are you healthy? Can somebody help you? Do you have resources available? All these material resources can be sometimes also limiting. And those who have more of it seems to be able to do more with their freedom than those who have less. This is a common sense, obvious fact. And at the same time, we have symbolic resources. That means, who are we in the eyes of society and in the eyes of people around us? And here comes the big effect, and sometimes very harsh effect, of how people as a group suddenly join up to judge an individual and to see at a person whether this is conforming or non-conforming to the agreements this culture has and the routines that they are following. So when we want to act in our freedom, we have circumstances and we have experiences. And between these two, we look into what's possible materially and how are we looked at symbolically. So people who want to leave their country because of basic needs and they do not have enough money to go by and they try to cheat their way into a better society, they can be looked at as poor people coming from the south or from the east or something, who wants to find a job and a new life, and let them be. Do not persecute them, even though they are coming into the country illegally, or maybe they are not really welcomed. At the same time, this view can be different in those same circumstances where they are not welcome, they are persecuted, they are followed to the door. And so these accumulated experiences on what do we have of resources materially and how are we looked at socially gives us our span of freedom of doing things in society. That's why you most of the time limit yourself unknowingly. When you go into a restaurant or a shop or are somewhere in public, you do not do the same things you really like to do when you are at the beach or alone or running in the rain, or stepping somewhere into the dance floor and dancing and shouting in the wind or something else. You limit yourself really much when you are in public society because you have these expectations. And the society is very harsh. It will get back at you very, very quickly. People will look at you. They will give you eyes. They will isolate you. They will shake their heads. And maybe if you're doing something that really exceeds the law, or maybe the limits of what people want to take, somebody can get up and beat you, or shout at you, or maybe call the police, the law and order, to take care of you. So society will not accept people who differ a lot from what they have accepted as the main course and main way of being. And that's why different societies with individuals in them can sometimes feel suffocating. If you are in the wrong society, if you have a certain set of mind and you like things that are forbidden or not really in that society, or you are somehow in a way that the society does not accept or do. And so what do you do with yourself? You feel suffocated and you have to adjust, otherwise you have to leave. And so we are between the actions and activities of adjusting and the activities of rebelling and going away from society into a different direction. But society will always have these expectations to what are you up to and what is possible for you. And so when some people sometimes get into situations where, are you really trying to do that? That's not for you. Who's judging? Well, it's the society. It's how others are looking at you. And if you are in a place and you do something out of the order, like in some societies, you cannot do things you usually do when you are in the cafe in your local place. And there are some noises and sounds you are not able to do. Maybe you have to do some certain issues before you go into the restaurant. You may have to be dressed in a certain way. There can be all sets and kinds of regulations from that specific group and culture that is surrounding you, and it has expectations to you, and you have to meet these expectations, otherwise you will be pushed out as someone who do not fit in, and then you will become the outsider, the isolated, the stigmatized, as we will talk about later. But then in your actions, in your activities in life, because again, sociology is about the individual, not individualism, and not that ideology of centralizing everything around the one person. It's not a rejection of the group. Sociology is just looking into the group activities, the networks, through the lenses of the single member of it, the building block, the single person who is acting. And to act, you need goals and you need means, like ways to get to your goal. And so you want to manifest your goals. And by manifesting your goals, you're manifesting yourself. And so when you are manifesting yourself, if you are part of the group, you become adapted, integrated, part of the whole. But if the group cannot accept your goals or the way you're doing it, well, they will reject you, and they will see you as someone who is overstepping your lines or the way they accept things, and that's why you lose their what can you say, acceptance in those. But many times we are not really aware that we are actually adjusting to the group without knowing it. So we sit a lot of the time with a lot of silent knowledge, like something we are not really realizing. Like when I'm speaking now, trying to speak English, I am definitely trying to put up an American way of saying things, but it is not truly an American way of saying things, and not either a British way of speaking loudly and clearly. Maybe it sounds Australian, or maybe something in between, or Indian. And so whatever I do, I am doing things without really thinking of how I am doing this. This is just how society has taught me to be and speak and go about thinking. And so in the ears of somebody far away who does not understand this way of speaking and the culture, I'm not saying not understanding the language, they may very well understand English. And even though I have an accent and all that, they will understand what I'm saying, but they will put me in a frame of something that is not really understandable to the way they usually speak. Maybe they're used to people who just make statements and make statements of truth or rejections, maybe harsh talks about what's good and bad, and big enticing ribbling words of. And I've been in that culture and have used this kind of words. That's why it's interesting to be part of two cultures, because if you can successfully shift when you are in one and the other, then you understand both and you can actually relate to both. But then you have to integrate them at one point, otherwise you will become somehow a split personality or something. And so whatever we do, we have learned from society, because when we were born, our moms not only gave us milk and that love and care, or didn't give that love and care, depends on who you are, where you've been, but someone took care of you so you could get on in your life and step on your own feet. So we are from the beginning been learning the rules of society, the language, the way of talking, the food, how we do things, how we do not do things, what is accepted, what is not. And there already differs society from each other. And so you are already adapted. So when you grow up and listen to this and read books about sociology and psychology and existence, oh my God, I have not been aware that I'm just a product of society. This is what they call it. You are just a product of what everything around you is, and they want you to stay that way maybe. And maybe they are scared of you shifting, or they will reject you if you shift too much. Maybe the society is tolerant and want you in a certain shape, but can accept you in different variations of yourself. But there are things it won't accept. But almost everything we do is because society has taught us it. And they call it the spontaneous actions and ways of being. We are close to ourselves in those spontaneous actions. At the same time, it is a reflection of how we have adapted the rules of our society around us. And so our identity, this is also an issue they will come back to in this book, our identity is formed in a kind of constant dialogue, or maybe an education of who you want to be, your goals, and what you want to do with it, when to rebel, when not to. It's always a talk between you and that side of you and things around you. The material factors, the symbolic factors, the abilities, the acceptance or rejection you are most likely to meet. All this is in a constant move. And so part of who you are, says some of the sociologists, Herbert Mead is one of them. George Herbert Mead has studied these things about consciousness and how society has left its mark on you and who you become. And he says that, well, it is a constant talk or dialogue where we use the language that's going on in ourselves and things around us, and the expectations of the groups in our actions around us. So I am I, but I'm also the me. I don't know what kind of language distinguishes that. It can be confusing to understand for people who really can't follow these thoughts, but it's like just to make a distinguish between something in you that you call I. This is your sphere, your way of action, your freedom, your way of deciding how you want to go about things. And there is the me. You are part of something else. And you have always to adjust to that in order to keep going on. Otherwise, you will be frozen out or isolated or get into trouble. So you adapt to the expectations. You do it inside of you when you have the lust and the wanting of something, but you do not do it because of responsibility or the consequences or what it can lead to. I saw something I really liked, I want to take it, but I didn't because the consequences is that other person will be sad, or the consequences is the police and criminality and jail, or the consequences is somebody will get hurt, and so on and so on. So these expectations that you have with yourself is your actions. That's called responsibility. Then you have another side of you that you are choosing and differing between what you want and what you think and know your society and the group and the morals, values, laws around you will accept. So sometimes you want to do something and you know, well, you don't feel bad about it, and you don't feel responsible for the consequences. It might be okay. It could be like eating a piece of cake in the street in a country that doesn't allow eating cake in the street in that country. And you can't see really what harm it is. And so you go doing it. But then they come after you and say, well, this was really not good. Why did you do that? And no matter what you argue, the culture has already put its mind on, well, you cannot eat cake in the streets like this. We do not allow it. We do not like it. It's against our culture. You walk into big shoes. They don't like that. You do not meet people with a certain hello or certain word or nay or movement. That puts you out of the society how it is. So I hope it become understandable that we are in between our duty to our own self, kind of responsible for the actions we want to do, but can give consequences, even though society does not forbid it or have anything against it. And then we have those where we adapt because society doesn't like it. And we are in that constant shifting. So we can identify more with society and the group and the people. And we almost always do that wherever we are, or we try fitting in, as they say. When you try fitting in somewhere, it's because you are trying to change that part of you that doesn't go well. It can be your clothes, your way of talking. It can be the way you eat. And so if you go to a place in the world where they sit on the floor and eat from a big bowl together and use their hands and then have a banana leaf to move it away, it doesn't have anything to do with if they are good or bad or you like them or not. This is the way they do it. And you do the same, you feel included. Okay? And at the same time, if you go into society that doesn't use all these things and you do it, especially in a group, people will most definitely look at you. We all know the story of Mr. Bean going to that restaurant, and we all laugh at it because he puts himself in that awkward situation of sitting alone and he's just trying to celebrate himself with nobody around him. This lonely guy, we identify with that. But when he starts eating and doesn't like the food and doesn't understand how to pick and choose from the menu, and suddenly thinks that he cannot really refuse it and he has to pay for it after that, and so he tries to get rid of it. I think many knows that scene, the old scene from Mr. Bean, where he's eating the tartar and he tried to hide it everywhere and things go wrong. And that's because his expectations and their expectations are different from each other, and that makes it very awkward sometimes. Yeah, well, they say this was, of course, my talk into the book, and it's not like a quote directly, or all these examples are mine on my account, not the books. I'm choosing it as an inspirational way into getting into this topic, but I also quote it sometimes, and use some places where, like here, where they say it's undoubtedly an undoubted fact that all societies are regulating to their members and their tendencies and goals and what they want to achieve. And they put a kind of playing room and allowance of movement and activity for those members' interactions. So it it is us in society where society has the upper hand. And sometimes you wish yourself in a different society where you can have more playing ground or more activity room for what you want to achieve and for your tendencies, and that's why you have to move. And sometimes you are in societies where these tendencies and activity moves are too far beyond the limit of what you like and how you are raised and the values you carry, and that's why you have to think again, is this the right society for me? Should I go a place where I can feel more accepted and identify with the society? And the more you can identify without losing yourself, the more harmony you will be. And the more you feel outsider and feel, oh, I wish I could do this, but I can't. I wish I could say this, but I can't. I wish I could differ in this and that manner without trouble, but I can't. And so that will give you the trouble you get in such society, and you get it also psychologically sometimes because your identity gets into trouble. And I know they quote Freud here, it's from psychology, but Freud had also made some insights in sociology. And so he say that society, this is my rephrasing, society is like that garrison that keeps an eye of its member and try to adjust them according to what they have agreed on, or the culture, or the law, or what they want it to be. And they put that garrison or part of it in your own psyche by educating you from you are small to have this voice that always talks you out of doing things that's not allowed. We know it from when we were kids and we want to take something from the cupboard of grandma, not the grandma I used to be in the hands of, but the other grandma that we visited sometimes, and we couldn't move from the chairs sometimes. She didn't like that. And so we sat very, very quietly and hoped the visit will be over soon. And we were waiting for that moment where she came with a bowl of gotteries and what can you say, chocolates and all this sugar we like, the kids, what do we call it? Lollipops and so on. And sweets, it's called sweets. Oh my God, I can't find the word. Yeah, she comes with a bowl of sweets, and then we are waiting for this moment. Then she puts it in that big cupboard of her with the mirror. And one thing you want to do is to get up and open that cupboard and take some more. But you know that something in you says no, because your mom has taught you when you go to that grandma, you sit still and you do not move. And you not just go out and take things as you like. And that culture is different when I'm at the other grandma's house. You can go to the cupboard and you can ask her for more, and you can move and run and do things that you couldn't do in the other place. And so only in one family and in two households you can find a lot of different cultural codes you have to adjust to. And who do teach you that? Comes from your childhood. So your mom or dad or school has already imprinted in you that voice that tells you what to do and not to do. And so when you grow up and you're really tired one day, you're tired of your work, you feel exhausted, you want to do something else. But you can't. You know nothing will happen. There is no one who will gonna fall off and die, and nobody is waiting for your appearance. It's just a work that somebody else can do or wait until tomorrow. But something in you will tell you you have to go to work. The big conscience of work, as they say in the Scandinavian countries that Max Weber has been studying in bureaucracy and the Lutheran work moral. So this is also the upper voice inside you. When you are in a shop and you can take something, or in a house and you know you can take something, nobody is looking, and well, they won't miss it anyway. It's just a piece of chocolate maybe, but you really want it, huh? And you don't. That's because there is a voice inside you saying don't. And if you take it later, you feel a guilt. And that guilt comes from that voice that society has put in you. This is how Freud explained it. And when things go wrong for people, it's because it goes wrong in their identity. Things get wrongly regulated inside themselves, so they suppress who they are for what the others want them to be, or that voice wants them to be. And he takes that all the way up to God and so on. And I do not agree totally on all this, but I can see the meaning with it, and I understand how it functions. And the same with society and groups and rules around you. They can be the voice, the garrison that makes you do things as requested. And when you are in a society that is chaotic and not really regulated by society's rules and culture, then you find people doing things that if you have done in the other society, you would have been punished. And there are societies that is so harsh that if you do things that seems very regular to you, like spitting underneath a tree or a lamppost, I'm not saying peeing, but spitting, just something in your throat, you want harking, you want to get it out. You can't. It's like the whole earth will be shaking and the alarms will go and the cameras will catch you and you can get a fine and you get trouble. So some societies regulate the members very, very harshly, and others give some playing room, as they call it in sociology, the playing room for your interactions and for your activities. So this is what the first part is about, is that you are bound by your actions in goals and means, and those are limited by what's accepted in society, your symbolic factors, and what is available to you, your material factor, and between them you act. And when you act, there are expectations on you and a voice inside you that guides you to act in a certain way, so society gets the benefit of you and will give you a thumbs up or a star or some kind of reward or just acceptance. And acceptance can be in itself a reward, because some of the harsh thing people can experience, as the book is going to talk about, is getting isolated, getting into prison, getting out of society and never being able to go back again. This is a very, very harsh treatment. You don't need to kill people. Sometimes you just need to put such kind of measures on them to show you've gone too far, you've gone outside the limitation of what we accept and the way we do things. And they are all conventional and they are all put by humans, but because they are regulated by the group who has agreed on it and made laws about it maybe, and you are judged into that. And that's where it comes to what they call the folk court. There is a court of law where you have a judge and you have the law and you have evidence and all kind of like looking at you according to what the law states. But at the same time, you can be judged by the people, like it happened in those movies we watched from the Wild West. Hang them up and don't wait for anyone. We don't want to wait for the judge. Criminals, bad people, up with them. And so the people can also put those effects on you unknowingly, and your identity is always in a dialogue to adjust to these things. And you have already learned it from your childhood that the ideas and rules and morals and way of being in society is the one that controls you and leads you and affects you. And they want it in a certain way. Some societies want it very, very strict, and so you have to live up to that role they want from you. And others, they give you the playground you can do. And if you are unsatisfied, you can leave, or you can be a rebellious guy, and you can maybe try to ignore that what they call the normative pressure that's on you. And so that's what we're going to talk about later, the socialization of you. You become socialized. You become integrated in what everything else around you is okay with, and avoiding what everyone around you is not okay with. And you learn to talk and speak and communicate and go about like is wanted for you. And these are mechanisms that society can use. And when we say society, it's also other individuals, but it's individuals with access and power who can go into motion, educating the new generations in a new way and saying, this is how we want it, and putting the limits. And that's where you come a product. And you have to find yourself again. And in some societies, you will be totally lost because you don't even have access to a book like this. And you cannot read about your actions as an individual as opposed to the actions of society. And so you are not even aware that you can be anything else than what has been prefabricated for you. Well, I love this talk, and I hope it will be loved for ever reasons that somebody else would get here and listen to it. I will continue in a new talk.